Hello, everyone. This is Keith Rawson. I am the social media manager for Minico Publishing, and I want to welcome everyone to the Mini Storage Messenger Self Storage webinar series. This is one of several informative webinars planned for self storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. The sponsor of today's webinar is XPS Solutions and is presented by John Traver. In 2001, John Traver sold his consulting and CRM software firm to Automatic Data Processing. Just a few years later, he purchased XPS Solutions from the original owners, Brad Boyd and Stan Colonna, who were previously national managers for public storage. Since that time, XPS has grown from a small 1,200 square foot facility with 10 customer service representatives to a first class, state of the art 10,000 square foot facility currently employing over 60 customer service representatives. This year marks the 32nd anniversary of the Mini Storage Messenger, providing the self storage industry with in depth news and information. Each issue of the Messenger offers cover stories and feature articles on the most timely industry topics and trends. Monthly columns contributed by industry experts and accomplished business professionals address a wide range of topics, including security, facility operations, technology, legal issues, legislative updates, construction, and development. We also publish a variety of other self-storage data sources like the ones that you see listed. For more information, please visit ministoragemessenger.com. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started today. We do invite you to submit questions throughout the webinar. Simply type your question into the question area and click send. Depending on the question, we will answer it privately or to the whole group. We will try to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A period at the end of the webinar. Those that can't be answered due to time constraints will be answered via email later. The webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. Today's presentation should run about 45 minutes, with the remainder of the hour open to questions and answers. And now I would like to turn the presentation over to John. John, how you doing today, sir?
Well, great. Thanks, Keith. I'm doing great. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, and thank you to all of you that have joined us today for the webinar. We have about 75 to 100 people with us today, and they're here to listen to a little bit about how every lead has a story. And I think I would open with this analogy. Let's think about this as a Wall Street discussion this afternoon or this morning, depending upon where you're calling in from. The Wall Street woods, if you will, is full of stories, right? Wall Street has been great lately, and we've seen a rebound in the market, some growth, and but when you look at it from afar, you look at it as it's so thick that maybe it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Every stock has to have a story, right? How else can a new company go public to have a currency, to attract skilled workers, to get banks to borrow them money, maybe even raise more equity capital through secondary offerings, etc. A lot of parallels to our industry in self-storage. The trouble is, how can an investor tell when a story is real and prophetic or just a story? And the answer, when you're looking at the stock, is you follow the money. You find out who's buying the story by who's buying the stock. And I think that is apropos for what we're here to talk about today. We want to talk a little bit about how every lead, whether it comes to us via the web or the phone, we want to know its origin. We want to know its conversion rate. We're in a market today where there are more leads being sold in our space than any other time in the history of our business. Our relative conversion rate lags behind. And so today, my hope is that by the time we finish, we can all agree that we definitely do not lack leads, but we may lack a process for converting the leads we're getting. That's the story that we want to follow today as we go through our Every Lead Has a Story webinar. Keith, I'm going to go ahead and just forward this and make sure that we're in lockstep here. Moving on, and we'll do a little background. I'm having difficult time getting it to go forward.
What you'll want to do, John, is go down to the lower left-hand corner of the,
Uh-huh.
or actually lower right-hand corner, and you'll just want to go ahead and just click with your mouse to begin with.
All right, like such. Okay, good deal. Well, quick background. My career actually started in automotive. Uh, uh, Started in 1986. I'm going to go ahead and get this rolling for you, Keith. Let's see here. I'm going to let you go ahead and load that screen. Uh, the the background I had in automotive, we certainly started in retail, had an operations experience there, and then started a company in 1991 called Trafer Technologies. Started the company in Houston, Texas, and the concept behind the company was to build a customer relationship management center in dealerships. We did that over a period of 9 years, implemented over 3,500 dealership call centers, partnered with some great companies, the Toyotas, the General Motors of the world, the Chryslers of the world. And during that time, had a chance to see how business was done in numbers. In 2000, Automatic Data Processing, most of us on this call know them as a payroll company, but they also have a dealer services division. It's about $1.5 billion in revenue, and it's a global business. It's in Europe, in Asia, as well as here in the U.S. and Canada. They bought the business from me in 2000, and so I obviously was faced with what my next challenge was, and I felt like I wanted to continue with the CRM platform, and I looked at 300 businesses probably over a period of about 2 years. And in 2004, as Keith said earlier, I was able to buy XPS, and it was a small business, but there were a lot of things I liked about what I saw. I was already a real estate investor, had some triple net deals that I owned. None of them were self-storage, but I did have some real estate that parlayed, and I certainly understood the name of the game. And since then, we've been able as a team to do quite a few things. I've had a chance to speak at numerous events, and we've certainly overhauled the platform that we inherited when I bought the business. CRM solution today is a web-based solution. It's integrated with the Centerships of the world, the Domicos, the SiteLinks, et cetera. So it's SMS integrated. We saw a need for an automated phone payment system. There's definitely a spike in calls in those last, say, 5 days of the month and the first 5 days of the month, and to handle those manually is really inefficient. So we also developed an application there that allowed us to help process those payments and even create a service fee for properties that wanted to have that in place. And then our next venue was really how do we help these same store businesses grow? And you're going to grow through conversion. We can only buy so many leads, and that's really what we're going to talk about today is how do you do that? We're going to borrow a little bit from a few lessons in automotive because I think that sometimes it's cheaper to borrow the lesson than it is to write the check ourselves. So we're going to steal from them a little bit here in today's conversation, but we're certainly going to focus on what we all do day to day. So we're going to start with that theme of identifying the origin of the leads you're getting. If you think about your business today, whether your vacancy, your occupancy right now is 93%, or you're dealing with occupancy that sounds more like vacancy, and you're dealing with 73s or 68s, the bottom line is that both of those stores, both of those properties have an opportunity to grow. The question is, how do you grow? Do we grow by finding and developing more leads, or do we get better through more conversions? And I want to start with more conversions if I can. Let's start with the type of leads we get first off. We get first-party leads. What is a first-party lead? That's a lead that typically is a web lead. It's coming from our own site, and it's the result of us doing things like search engine optimization, local searches like you see there, self-storage, and then enter the name of your city. When that is done via Google or Yahoo or any other search engine, a list of properties comes up, as you know. Search engine optimization is a great way to get onto page one. It's a great way to move up page one. The question is, once you've spent that money, what are you now doing with it to convert those leads and move those folks in? And I want to get you to think today as we go through this and revisit this process. I think you'll find there is an opportunity not only to save money in that process, but to make money. Most of that is money well spent, but we got to find ways to convert more of our first-party leads. The second thing is third-party leads. These are the leads that maybe don't come to our site directly, we buy these leads. These would be leads that come from the likes of Sparefoot or U.S. Storage Search, maybe storage.com. There's plenty of these aggregators out there that we can buy leads from if we don't have enough. And then as you move on, you have this picture of aggregation, right? Companies that are, putting themselves in a position to find hot leads, warm leads, and move them to us if we're enrolling for these listings and these leads. But there are different opinions on whether or not that's the right way to grow our industry and grow our business. We've seen a few white papers come out, and they have definite posture against the aggregation model. Whether we're for or against, I don't think really changes anything. At the end of the day, what I really want to get our heads in this call today around is thinking about how we're going to respond to the leads we're getting, how to convert more of them to move us to a point where we're profitable or we're more profitable and we can grow safely in our space. But let's not overlook one other area, and that's the incoming phone leads. Some of these people will start their homework, many of them, most of them will start their homework on the web, but eventually they're going to pick up the phone. Some of them will choose to use chat or use emails, to start that exchange between us and them. And so you really have four main freeways that are coming in, not counting our walk-ins, that are coming into our properties on a regular basis. And we want to say, how do we convert more of these folks? We're going to give you about 9 conversion rules today. And here's the very first one. The very first one is we have to measure what it is that we're managing. When we're managing leads, I would say conversion rule number 1 is revisit how you're measuring what is being managed. And we're going to take a look at the numbers here in just a second and see if we really do have a good grasp on what's going on. Before we do that, though, let's look at and take a survey of what's going on out there from a competitive standpoint. We talked a minute ago about doing a Google or a Yahoo search and entering our local city's name and typing in self-storage next to it and to see what's out there. The Almanac this year came out with its updated version of the competitive mix and what it looks like in a 5-mile radius. This is the data that was reported. They said that the competition now, depending upon what industry we're in, as you look down here down the list, and you look at the national average, is 7.5 facilities in a 5-mile radius. And then you say, well, that's probably about right. Or in my space, you might say, that seems high. Or perhaps you're in the southeast and you say, geez, that seems low. That would be great if it was just 7.5. Irregardless, the numbers are what they are. And so the picture is this. When I bought this business in 2004, we were about 1 in 4. Our typical property was about 1 in 4 in its market. Today, it's closer to 1 in 9. So there is definitely more competition. And as we add more facilities, we certainly hope the trend for renting and storing goes up, but we have to get better at the conversion game. Like I say, the other piece of this is those under conversion and those under construction. That's going to add to the competitive balance in the coming months and years. 10.8 is what their projection is here in the near-term future. So it's definitely competitive. So lead conversion rule number 2 would be this. Be realistic in your current market when assessing the competition that you currently have. And also be realistic about their conversion practices. Sometimes we look past our competition. Other times we focus on what we're doing. I think both are healthy. Perhaps John Wooden said it best years ago when he said, maybe don't worry so much about what they're doing, just execute on what we're supposed to be doing. But let's make sure we do have a plan that works, and that's one of our goals for you today in this 45-minute tune-up is let's go ahead and sharpen our axe. Let's make sure we have processes that are allowing us to get our share of these leads converted. So rule number 2, be realistic about the competition we have. Now let's move on. The most important part of the lead conversion process, without a doubt, we want to convert leads into rentals. Let's assess 3 or 4 things real quick. Number 1 is this. Lead acquisition costs are going up. The move-in costs now range actively, and that means there are some moving costs that will be outside of this range, north of this range or south of this range, but $174 to $259 per rental. Google ad clicks, using Google ad clicks, the average right now is about $200 per rental, and that's from Sparefoot this year. It's on the website. So what you're looking at there is essentially $5 per Google ad click, and it takes 40 of those clicks to create a move-in. That's how you get to 200. So you think about that number, you say, gosh, what would happen if we could get 10 more of those people to convert? What if we had a process in place that would slow them down? What would we do to our average move-in cost? We'd decrease it, while at the same time we would also increase our revenue. The other thing is our SEO expenses continue to go up year over year, 44% year over year right now, 2012 versus 2011. So, we see that on the climb, and that's actually a good expense. That says, we're trying to get up there front and center on page one. So those are good things. The bottom line is there's more and more money continually being spent on lead acquisition. So obviously, some of you are saying, gosh, is this the motivational part of the seminar? And, the good news is this. The good news is that 96% of property visits actually rent. So in other words, once I touch base with your property and I choose to come in and look at the property, having not rented yet, 96% of the time, I'm going to fill out a contract. I'm going to rent. That's good news. So the bottom line is this is the key process. This is a huge takeaway from today's discussion. The key process here, if you want to make the main thing in lead conversion, getting them on site is your end zone. That is where you score 6 points. You got to get them into the property. To convert, you get them on site. But what you'll find is that, I've owned this company now for 9 years. And I own a couple other businesses, and I can tell you that it's very easy to begin focusing sometimes in a vacuum, on the wrong thing. In self-storage, one of the things I've noticed over the years is we've had many times had to talk key clients of ours off the ledge when it comes to reservation fees. Some are locked in on the $25 reservation fee. But a reservation fee sometimes will work. I'm going to give you that. But in today's market, what we really want to do is we want to get them to rent, not to reserve. So if we can go from reserving to renting, I think everybody's moving the ball forward. And that's really the metric that's going to make the most difference for your property. How do you do that? Well, study the numbers. The numbers say 96% of folks that visit your property after finding some interest that are in-market leads will rent from you. Let's have a process that gets them to the property. Obviously, we're going to talk about that today, but I wanted to go ahead and earmark this first so we knew where we were going. What happens if we look at this stat and we say, nah, we're okay? I would say that difficult times are ahead for that guy. I don't think we have too many of those people on this call. I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you're taking time in the middle of July, in the middle of the day, to sit on a webinar that talks about lead and lead conversion, you're teachable, you're probably hungry, you're probably progressive, and you probably don't fall in this group. But I think I would also say that everybody on this call probably doesn't have a problem with having some competitors that do fall in this group, because that's more of an opportunity for each of us, right? There is increasing competition. We've talked about the number of facilities and the number of units in a 5-mile radius. The costs continue to go up. Lead aggregators continue to scoop leads and sell those leads. So the bottom line is we need a conversion process in place. My advice to you is this: increase the emphasis on lead conversion. On lead conversion, not necessarily lead acquisition. You should have that in place by now. Lead conversion should look like this, though. I'm going to use the word stop the shop and emphasize that whatever you do to convert, you should have a process in place that when they touch base with you through chat, through email, or through phone, that there's something about that exchange that says, whoa, I want to go take a look at these folks' facility. I want to see this unit. They sounded informed. They sounded like they knew what they were doing. And there was something about the way they propositioned me properly during the course of this exchange that says, I need to go down and take a look at their facility. That's what your process really should say. We want to take these empty units and fill them up, and that's what the concept behind this whole lead conversion process should be. Lead conversion rule number 3 is this: implement a process that effectively gets your leads on site for a property tour. If I were to make one adjustment in your process, I would say start here. Make sure that your end in mind is to get them on site. You say, what's the alternative? The alternative is you're trying to get them to reserve online. And that's not a bad thing, but you'll get more folks rented if you'll focus on moving them to the next step of the process. Quick sidebar. In automotive, we've used this process in tens of thousands of times. And in automotive, when you take an incoming sales call, somebody calling on a 2009 Dodge half-ton, and you're able to answer their questions, you're able to maybe add a few other units they might want to consider through exchange and through good questioning, and this call is now 2.5, 3 minutes in. You're looking at what's available in inventory, just like you would in storage. We would ask them, great, when are they planning to move? What are they planning to move from? Will they need climate control? Those would be good qualifying questions for somebody calling as a potential tenant, right? But we take and implement this process in automotive. We almost double the conversion rate by using this. And in self-storage, we're earlier in the game, but our numbers already are very exciting. I would tell you that, today, this is a webinar. This is a chance for you to take this process and implement it on your own. Obviously, if you need help doing it, we can do that too. But either way, you walk away with a strategy that can be implemented, and you should be able to see that strategy before you even start. So rule number 3 is, again, get them on site. What we're saying here is be careful about overselling the unit. We're not saying maybe just don't sell it, but don't oversell it. Ask quality questions, advise on the unit, but sell the unit to her, because that's the next logical step. If you're not feeling well and you call your doctor and they say, come on in for surgery, you probably want to call another doctor, right? But they say, come on in, let's take a look. And they get your vitals and they weigh you in and they ask you good questions and they send you for testing. It's a process that you're able to trust. And so that's kind of what you have here. Let me go on to the next piece here. We're going to track your leads. Let's talk a little bit about how you can actually track your leads and how this process should be done. First of all, how many phone leads are we getting a day, a week, a month in this business right now? Well, that's a great question. The Almanac came out this spring, as it always does. And where does the Almanac get its numbers? It gets its numbers from us, right? It sends us a survey. We fill out the survey as industry professionals, and we tell them everything from square footage rented to number of units to average transaction value, average stay, and of course, leads. And leads are broken up into a couple different sources. What I found interesting this year was to look at the numbers and to see a trend that continues. Average phone leads per day. It says that things are really good. It says that the average property gets 4.7 phone calls, new leads every day. And it says that we're renting almost 60% of those people. Wow, those are great numbers. We're going to talk about the reality of those numbers in a minute, but that would be a great thing if it were true. Internet leads, it says in addition to those 5 phone calls we get a day, we're also getting another 5 web leads a day, and we're closing 60% of those people. So, I wasn't a math major, right? But if we're going to go by the numbers, and I'm going to say that with a question mark in my voice, that means that nationally we're getting 5 phone leads a day, another 5 web leads a day, and combined closing percentage is 59.7%. So 5.1 and 4.7 is 9.8. So we're getting 10 leads a day, and we're closing 60%. So we're basically moving in 5.85 people a day. And if I don't count Saturday and Sunday, and we just say 20 days a month, that means we're moving in 117 people a month, right? Well, gosh, I mean, if you're new to this business, you're probably thinking now you might have needed to buy a 1,000 or a 10,000 unit facility instead of an 800 or a 500 or a 200, because you're looking at this saying, gosh, we could move folks in and really grow this thing and flip it and get it to a cap that we're going to turn our money real quick. The reality is that this is not the reality. Leads and rentals, when we start tracking, we're asking people to tell us about what they're getting. They're using numbers, raw numbers. Some of these are the same name being counted twice. Some of these are guesses. Some of these are not tracked with systems that you can count on, certainly not empirical data. So it's really hard to build a business case when you're looking at numbers like this. But again, these numbers came from us as an industry, from our staff, the folks that interact with these leads, or at least interact with the people that interact with those leads. So lead conversion rule number 4 would be this: implement a tracking system that's accurate. Now that's simple, right? But here's the thing. The most accurate tracking system, you say, John, what would that be? I would tell you that using tracking numbers, their phone tracking numbers are available to everybody here. So start with that, okay? Start with tracking numbers that are driven through screen pops. That's going to be your most accurate system where there's no human intervention. Everything is data. It hits a switch and it rolls to a report. The other thing I would say is, and this is a bit, maybe we're helping ourselves a little bit, but maybe not just ourselves. I would tell you that when you outsource it or when you move it to a dedicated group, even if it's internal, if you're big enough to do that, it's easiest to manage because it's no longer personal. It's easier to hold those people accountable sometimes than it is to get on and get with somebody that you've hired to do just this task. So when it comes to tracking, you're going to need a real picture because you may have a lead problem. You may not be getting enough, and now you'll know what to do from an SEO standpoint. Moving out just a little further, though, if maybe you don't have a lead problem, maybe it's just a conversion opportunity, and so you want to focus on that next. How you might be asking now, how do I implement our own system? How do we do this in such a way where we actually have tracking in place if we want to do this on our own? Well, let's look at it real quick. A direct call to your property, an SEO lead, and a third-party lead. Theoretically, you have already a local number that rings directly to your property, right? Secondly, if you've hired a company to help you with search engine optimization, and you can have dynamic phone numbers that pop up based on the search engine, okay, that those leads are coming from and that are being found at what web page. And instead of, having this right now, that number, when it rings, you'll get a report and it says, hey, we made your phone ring 20 times this month or 40 times, right? Right now, this number points here. We're going to give you another strategy that might be able to enhance that a little bit. If you're using a third-party lead like a Sparefoot, here's again another tracking number that can be unique. So you can track this uniquely through tracking numbers. You say, well, all right, we can do that, but I'm not sure how we roll that all up into one area. I think this is where dedicating a team where you get a chance to really raise the bar and increase the conversion rate. These calls here, when they come in as prospects, they could be manually forwarded to a dedicated team, whether it's somebody you build or somebody you hire. It can be sent to that team, and they're prepared to take that lead and manage it and work with it in such a way that gives you the best chance of getting them on site for a tour. Again, that should be the main goal. The second thing is these numbers, instead of ringing and bogging down your property, let them auto-forward. You have all your tracking. You're going to get your tracking here with this group, and the same would be true for your third-party leads. So now you have one report that gives you the opportunity to track everything you need to track. The result, when you do this properly, you should be in the neighborhood of 85% scheduled appointments, 95% of those folks showing for their property tour, and 100% of those people being able to be tracked in terms of number of opportunities, number of calls, the days and the times that you get calls, and the origin and the sources, just like we spoke to here. So that, to me, is how you track. You start with tracking numbers, you centralize it, and then you implement a process that allows you to get to these type of conversion numbers. Those are realistic numbers and realistic processes. Dedicating the team, that allows you to have a constant in place. It doesn't mean that our staff back at the property is inept. It doesn't mean that they can't do this. It's really all about loading up their day where they got a chance to make the most out of the leads we do have. Let them sell the property. Let them sell the unit. Let them do the paperwork. Lead conversion rule number 5 is use a dedicated team to receive and convert phone and web leads. Use an automated tracking system to route all your leads. Okay, those are the big 2 right there. How do you stop the shop? We talked about this a little bit earlier. How do we stop the shop with every call and with every web lead? What we're going to do is share with you a couple strategies we've used both in automotive and then, of course, here at XPS. And we've made some mistakes here. I would tell you that we've kind of gotten this down to a sweet spot, an area where we say, it starts with the power of the premium. Now, the power of the premium is nothing new to business. In fact, I would hope that just about everybody on this call has tried implementing a premium as a conversion tool when they come in contact with new leads. The key is to not overdo it. The key is to implement this and to present it in such a way where it makes sense. So let's talk about what that should look like first. All right? We're going to do this with every web lead and every sales call if you and I are partnering in this thing and we both own this facility that you call yours. First of all, let's start with some obvious stuff. It requires time to shop for a storage unit, right? It requires time. It takes time out of the day. And time is money for everybody. So we should have a goal in this process where we can appeal to the logic that says, hey, let's help you offset some of that time invested. So that's where we start. And we want to stop the shop by implementing some sort of power premium that does just that. When they talk to us and they see that we understand what they're looking for and we have good questions and it sounds like we know what we're talking about, and then we add that one more thing that says, wow, and here's an enticement for us to come in, then maybe we've accomplished something a little bit more compelling than your standard call that says, yeah, why don't you come in, or why don't you give me your credit card and I'll reserve that unit because I only have 2 left. I think the question is this: the closest thing to a sure thing rental in our business today, without a doubt, is a property unit tour. So whatever we do here, we want it to point here. We want that next logical step to be in place, okay? One example that you can use on your website is using some sort of enticement when they're actually, maybe not on the home page, but when you're actually looking for a unit and they're searching the inventory. Having some sort of compelling offer that makes sense. Stop the shop with strategic type web forms is another great place to slow down the shopping. Lead conversion rule number 6 is offer a power premium to every lead. Over the phone, sell the tour. That's our recommendation. And that tour will lead to the rental. It's a lot easier to say yes once I'm there on site. You can stop the shop with the right premium 85% of the time. So that's a number you want to go out and test. And finally, I would say remember to, at the end of today's workshop, you might be saying right now, okay, what premiums are you thinking of? What works for you? I would tell you at the end of today's webinar, I'll give you a way for you to reach out and grab those from us. We can either help you directly or indirectly, but we'll give you the best stop the shop premiums that are working today. Okay, well, the best practices. Let's kind of move into the home stretch here. The best practices for increasing your conversions. One of those I would tell you is the confirmation email. When you hang up, you're going to want to have a process in place that confirms, this upcoming property unit tour they have, the date and the time, what they're actually looking for. If you've had some sort of incentive tied in, what that is and what to do when they show, maybe a link to your property. So that conversion rule just says, hey, use some sort of email confirmation to increase the appointment show rate. And I'll also tell you that it should be part of your call. As those calls come in, we want to gather that information. It makes follow-up much easier when we get a good email address. So that's a definite yes. And this tool basically should give them a recap of that pending property tour. It's non-confrontational, it's informational, and it's also progressive. It allows them to move down the next step of the sale and move closer to renting with us. Our next piece is how to handle your best leads, and that's really what this process is for. It's for our hottest leads, those that are known as our in-market leads. If we look at this from a number standpoint, for every 100 leads that we get, and I can tell you at XPS, our average client will manage about low 30s, let's call it 30 as a round number, about 30 hot prospects per month. You got to understand, for many of our properties, we're a backstop coverage, so that may not be the total picture of the amount of opportunities they have per month, and that's just by phone. Okay, that does not include our web support. So for this would be about 3 months worth of backstop phone leads for a particular property. I can show you that. The typical property is going to schedule at a rate of about 60% scheduled. About 64% of those people will show for that appointment if you do this in the traditional way. Once they do show, though, 96% rent. So what happens is, out of every 100 phone leads that we manage for a property, about 36.5, almost 37 will rent. That's fine, but is there better? And the answer is, with a lead conversion process in place, if you obey the rules that we just talked about, the first number and the first lift you get is right here. 85% scheduled. Some properties a little higher, some properties a little lower, but not much. It's really close. That's a very good sweet spot. What you'll find is this is kind of like first downs in football or base hits in baseball. In baseball, it's all about getting on base. It's a 90-foot game. In football, it's all about moving the chains. It's about first downs. The Tim Tebow of 2 years ago with the Broncos, maybe that throw wasn't the prettiest throw, but he moved that football team down the field, and they won late in the season. They won in the playoffs. Again, you got to schedule appointments with these leads, folks. That's the key. Whether you agree with the process or not, the bottom line is this. You can continue spending $200 a lead to buy leads that eventually do rent from you, or you can invest a little bit in each lead, ultimately spending less and converting more by changing your process. There is a method to this madness. 95% of these people will show when you do this right, and you still run at a clip of at least 96%. Effectively, what you've done by increasing your schedule and your show rate is you've almost doubled, better than the conversion of that same 100 leads. That's where this process begins to make sense. Okay, there are times in this call where I wish I could be two-way with you and we could be conversing, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A piece here in just a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and give you a few more things. I would recommend you have some sort of reporting tool. In our world, we'll use a source by tracking number, and it describes what that source is, whether it's your website or SEO or whatever. And you should be able to see month to date where your leads are coming from, what your conversion percentages are. You should be able to see trends and know what's working and what's not. When you centralize and you put tracking in place and you put a process in place, guess what? Now you're back on top of your business. One of the first books I read before I started my first company was in 1986. It was called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and many of you may have read The E-Myth or The E-Myth Revisited that he wrote in 2000. My favorite line from that book is where Michael said, the difference between a good entrepreneur and a great one is great ones don't get stuck in their business. They stay on it. And that's really what today is all about. It's about sitting in a position where we look at a process for lead conversion and we say, we can be better. We can be better. We need to do more with what we got instead of going out and buying more leads and hoping we convert with the process that we have in place. That's what good reporting should allow you to do. So track and measure your process is rule number 8. Focus on the process. Measure with the results. I think that's a mistake we often make, though, is we focus just on the results. But the results are a result of a process. It's the process that'll change the scoreboard. Okay, so let's focus on that process. That's how we improve those results. Coming in the home stretch here, converting more leads through preparation. I will tell you that whatever you do, whether you do this on your own or you have somebody help you, or if we're fortunate enough to help you, any way you go about this, the bottom line is, what happens at the property level? What does my property manager say, or my property associates who typically work with these leads? Well, theoretically, this is really what you should be doing. You should be preparing them for daily appointments. The concept behind this whole manage and track and be ready and centralize is to prepare them so that each day as they open the day, they know by the time of day, by the customer name and the unit that customer's coming in on and the source that they came from, because it's all electronic. You should know exactly what's about to happen. That's kind of how we've approached it in this space, and that's how I'd recommend you approach it as you go out and chase that part of the business. When they show, of course, you're going to go ahead and whatever power premium you used, you're going to go ahead and provide that to them. Keep in mind, though, that this process, too, is a cycle. Once that lead contacts your property through the web or through the phone, somebody on your team or a team that you've appointed is going to cover that inquiry. They're going to introduce the premium, if you will. They're going to set an appointment. That appointment's for a unit tour, and it looks like we have the unit in inventory. It's available. Let's get you in. Let's walk it. But what happens if they don't show? My recommendation is, what we do, and what I would recommend you do, is make sure you have a dedicated team that follows up and attempts to reschedule that the very next day. Let them know the unit's still available. Let them know the premium is still good. Things do come up. You're going to find your no-show rate is very low if you do this right. It's very low, but you still want to capture those folks. So always complete that cycle. Finally, how does this impact the bottom line? I want you to revisit your lead acquisition strategy real quick, if you would. The traditional self-storage advertising approach and lead acquisition strategy looks like this, everyone. We take a certain amount of money and we spread it across categories like this. Of course, over the years, we've seen Yellow Pages kind of disappear and we've seen the web swell. But, the bottom line is that when we spend that money and we say, gosh, what's our return? What's our return on billboards? What's our return on flyers or magazines or radio, what have you? It's really hard to quantify. It's really hard to measure. There's a lot of risk there, and because there's limited tracking. And then you have the advent of the web and SEO and web marketing, and of course a lot of money is moving there, and it should, because it's more trackable. But what I would share with you is this. At the end of the day, you got to get down to an acquisition cost per lead. The only way you know where to spend your advertising money is by knowing what works now. And if it's not acceptable, if it's an exchange that a rate that just doesn't allow you to grow that business, then I would tell you that your cap rate is in jeopardy. The ability to grow the value of the business is in jeopardy. You may be fortunate to be in a market where you're sitting at 90+%, and you pretty much call your own shots. Well, that's a different situation to be in. And of course, we all know there's ways to still grow that property through rate increases and the like, extending tenant stays, things like this. But at the end of the day, I would tell you that if you're not in that fortunate seat of 90+% all the time with your eyes closed, then you need to be on top of your game and looking at ways to grow that business. And I would tell you that a lead acquisition / conversion strategy will probably be the most profitable thing you've ever done from a marketing standpoint. So there you go. Lead conversion rule number 9 is this: profitable growth requires a lead conversion strategy that works. And the only way you'll know it works is if you track it. I would tell you, number 1, track leads. Track your leads from their origin. Be as specific as you can. Number 2, offer a power premium to stop the shop every time you interact with those leads. Number 3, dedicate trained personnel to handle all phone and web leads. Uninterrupted, better skilled, and they're going to tee up your best people to do the conversion. And the results, you'll double your lead conversion rate. That's really what this is all about. We have a Q&A session. I think we're on time. We're on schedule. It's about quarter till the hour. I know Poppy had a personal emergency today. She wasn't with us. Keith, I think you're fielding those. I would also just add that, if you want more information, any feedback, you can get that by reaching out to Mike Roberts at our offices. It's mroberts at XPS USA. Keith, do you have any questions that are coming in that I can field for you, and then I'm going to go?
We do have a couple that have come in here. The first question is what's your thought in offering another service such as U-Haul rentals?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. What is your thought? What is your thought in offering another service such as U-Haul rentals?
Well, it comes down to need. First of all, I think there's 3 ways to grow a business, right? Number 1 is increase number of transactions, right? Number 2 is increase the frequency of the transactions. In other words, the amount of times that customer comes back and buys. And number 3 is increase the average transactional value. That one right there would appeal to number 3, right? It would be adding something on to the sale. I would just say this, that, love the idea. I think you're speaking to a part of the market. The assumption is they're going to need a U-Haul unit of some sort, trailer or truck. I don't know if you transformationally change a business by just adding that one component. I think it's important. I don't know if it speaks to the full conversion piece. I would definitely make sure you're converting your share leads in addition to finding ways to increase the average transactional value.
Okay, excellent. Here's another one. I currently don't have tracking numbers on our different lead generating programs. Can you set us up for that? I think there's
Yes. The question is, we don't have tracking numbers currently in our programs. Can we set you up on that? We certainly can. The tracking numbers are the easy piece, right? Somebody once said, information is power. And I can tell you that I have people in my life that have 3 or 4 degrees, and sometimes I wonder how powerful they really are, as they struggle making basic decisions. I got people in my life that don't have a degree, and they're extremely competent, and they've done a great job of raising families and growing businesses. I think at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that information, just having a tracking number in place doesn't always solve the problem. You got to go further than that. Certainly you need that to get started, but it's how you interact with that information that's going to determine how much your business can grow. What do you do with that data? Do you respond to it on a regular basis? I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see made. So yeah, we definitely can help you there, but I think we can help you beyond that even. We can give you a plan that shows you how to interact with that data on a monthly basis, make good decisions, grow your business.
Here's an interesting question: can call centers get appointments better than site managers?
Hmm. Well, it's the can question, so I appreciate the can, whoever launched that question. You know, interesting. I'm going to give you another parallel. In automotive, I have a separate company that takes calls for automotive service departments in the dealership. The typical service manager makes $60,000 a year. This person is trained on the product. They're trained on what to ask, and yet at the end of the day, when you call most service departments, you experience a handful of things: a wait time. You experience sometimes your call's sent to voicemail. You don't get to talk to anybody. When you do talk to them, they tell you to bring it in, right? You come in and they say, "Oh, we're going to need your car overnight." It's a mishmash of disappointments, and so the automotive industry kind of wonders why companies like Pep Boys and Firestone have done so well, and the answer is they've rented their customers. They didn't own them. At the end of the day, what we did with a different company I had built was we built a solution where we took all those service calls for them. We knew what EGR valves were. We knew what Bulletin 106A meant. I would tell you this, that the can is a definite yes if it's dedicated and those folks are trained properly. Is there a perfect business center / call center environment out there? No, it's kind of like a church. If you find the perfect one, give me a call because I want to go write my next book on them. But when you dedicate people to a task, it's much easier to consistently execute that process. I would tell you to do your homework. Vet those companies that you're considering to help you in that space. The one common denominator I would point to as well is that every one of the real estate investment trusts that you compete with that are poaching the leads that you're trying to convert, and they'll tell you that, every one of them have a centralized sales center. Every one of them. They manage all their web leads and all their phone calls through a centralized center. And that should tell you a little bit about strategy and how to execute. Okay?
Okay. We have a really good question that came up here. We use tracking numbers, but don't need to filter the duplicates and current customers asking other questions. How do you filter that to get a good number for incoming calls?
Right. What we've done is, asking how we do it. We do a dedupe. So we'll look for common denominators in first name, last name, phone numbers, email, and we'll do a dedupe. We put matches and exception categories so that you can see exactly what you have. That's a bit of an internal process. Again, go beyond measuring though, right? You want to go to, you want to measure how many of these people you got on site. Not just how many leads you got, but how many did we get on site, and then how many did we rent? Those are the big three right there.
This is also a pretty interesting question. And I think it might be in regards to tracking. It's what about working with a local restaurant and offering a coupon to leads to come see our property, like a thank you, and hoping they rent with us. It might have more to do with cross promotion and things of that nature. So
Right. Right. I think the spirit of that question is spot on. I think whoever asked that, I think you have the right idea. I would encourage you to reach out to Mike Roberts, pick his brain. We have some more specific answers for you on how to do that with local companies. The key to that process, I would tell you, is the red tape. Everything from just managing cards or gift cards, the plastic, all that. There's a cleaner way to do that. We do this in our environment. Everything is electronic. There is no plastic. We do use a gift card type approach. It's very powerful. We vetted it in automotive first. If we can do it in automotive, we knew we could do it in storage. I think where you're coming from is spot on. I think, again, the theme where you want to come from there is, hey, by the way, we understand this takes time. Time's money. We got a way to help you offset a little bit of the time you're investing here. I'll make sure I get you set up on this gift card here in just a minute. A couple more questions for you about the unit, though, blah, blah, blah. And then before you're done, you should circle back and go ahead and tie them back into that card, and that's your segue to set the appointment. That's how we do it. Very, very powerful. and it also makes a lot of sense. And I would be okay with anybody close to me running into that process and being handled that way. I think it's very clean.
I have a question for you as well. With coming from the automotive industry, how do the two how does the self storage industry compare to the automotive industry and vice versa?
Well, it's interesting. Both are communities, right? And both are smaller communities than you realize when you go in. You have types of people. You have change friendly, you have resistors, you have fencers in both industries. Both industries want to grow. Both are growing. Self-storage is so appealing to me because there are some things in our marketing and our conversion approach that we trail by about 4 or 5 years compared to automotive. Automotive has more reps, a little bit more money that they spend on a monthly basis. The typical advertising budget in a dealership, if you take all 18,600 dealerships in the U.S., for example, divide by their advertising budget annually, divide by 12, you come up with about $45,000 a month in advertising expense. So when you compare that to storage, you say, well, we spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500 or $4,500 a month. And some properties maybe on this call say, wow, that seems like a lot, or others say that's nothing. But as a mean average, that's about where we run. So more money being spent. And so for me, to be able to see where the opportunity is in self-storage and how we can take and migrate from where we are and converting more of these leads. For example, in automotive, in the mid-2000s, you had a few of the lead aggregators that were selling leads, and you paid per lead. Well, it didn't take long for states like Texas to realize that there were some shenanigans that was going on in this space, and there were laws that were created that prevented automotive leads from being sold by these aggregators. And so today, for example, in Texas, you can only buy based on what's called listings, which is a totally different definition, and it works a different way. So, it's very interesting to see the progress. I would tell you that I can see some things that are happening in self-storage that already happen there. I can see some things that we still have an opportunity to grow in this space. So I love both businesses, but feel like these are special years right now for self-storage if we execute.
Excellent. Right. And we had one more question here, and then I think we're going to wrap it up for today.
Sure.
Now, with this is another pretty good question here. How does this tie into our SiteLink systems under inquiries and reservations?
Right. Well, on our website, if you go to XPS USA, in fact, Keith, if you can forward to that last screen for me while I answer this question, there a little bit of that is there sitting there for them. But if you go to XPS USA and you look on the main page and you scroll down to the third item there, it says Integrated for Profit, and it deals with our payment processing tool that's integrated with a handful of site management systems. So when you go there, take a peek. You'll see who we are currently integrated with, and there's some others that may not have made that list that are smaller, but we do integrate very well with SiteLink, have a great working relationship with them, but I would say that it's not just SiteLink, and there really is no level of integration that we can't push or pull to or from with those companies listed. What we do there, though, is what we want to do is take and capture the lead. We want to set the appointment. We want to get them on the property, and then once they're on the property, of course, that's booked, and it'll wash out to a comparison report. So that's how we handle it with SiteLink. Not all of them are set up the same way, so each of them maybe would be a slightly different answer.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's what we have today, John. Like I said, I do want to thank you for your time today, sir. That was a very informative webinar. And I also want to thank everyone else who attended today. I hope we provided you with some useful information to assist you with your investments and your development endeavors. You will be receiving an email shortly with the link to the archive presentation. And watch for your inbox for this email. And once again, thank you for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day. And John, once again, thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Keith. Thanks to all that attended today. Don't hesitate to reach out if you want the power premiums. You can reach out to Mike at the office. He'd be more than happy to get you a white paper on that. Thanks again for your time, everyone.